Liton ug iyang asawang bulanon
magtiayon sa lalawigan sa Bohol.
Ng isang dayuhan at ang kanyang asawang Pilipina.
7 taon ng mag-asawa sina Terence at Beth na nakatira ngayon sa lungsod ng Talibon, Bohol. Suportado ni Congresswoman Alexi Totor ang programang pabahay ng mag-asawang Martin sa probinsya ng Bohol dahil sa inisyatibong tumulong sa mga Boholano.
Don't forget to share.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we had an interesting visit today, this evening, at about I don't know, maybe 8 o'clock in the evening. We had the call come up from the house. Nanai's house is on a lower level than ours, so we're down a few steps, and it's about 30 feet away, so very close. And so the call came up, but that there was some police outside the door. So we went down, and there we are. We have a visit from 4 armed police in their pickup truck, and they want to inquire about my health. And apparently, I'll give you the short version. Apparently, someone had sent an email to the PNP in Taliban claiming that I was sick. So, in the present climate of this pandemic, and talking about people being sick and having this virus and that virus, they sent these 4 police officers, very pleasant, not invasive at all, and just one police officer did the talking. He said that they had received this email and that someone had claimed that I was not well. So because it was suggested that they really should come up and check on me, so that's what they did. So it was a scam, obviously. I am perfectly well. In fact, for my age, I am a rare case of someone who is not on any kind of medication at all. So, we had a nice chat with the officers. The people who sent this email, I'm still amazed that what can happen is that someone can send an anonymous complaint, and that depending on the circumstances, it will be acted upon. But it's acted upon in a very laid back way. So they came up and they were very, very pleasant. Once we gave them a little backstory on how we've been harassed by trolls and what they mean, they began quickly to understand that they had been sent up to check on me and that it was a big scam, which is what we're accused of scamming. But here they are doing what they accuse us of doing. So we had a chat with the officers, and we shared with them that actually we had the pleasure of the same number, in fact one more officer from Atafi, and the PMP at Atafi, who we've worked with on a couple, if not maybe 3 different occasions now, where they've sent some officers over, one in which we had been concerned a little bit because of the reports about this house that the DSWD had asked us, or the local branch of the DSWD, and we'd been asked to go along to this house and see if we could build something for them. The lady that we would have been building for, was diagnosed schizophrenic, and so it seemed like it might be a slightly odd thing. We sent Johnny there, and Johnny had a chat with the husband of this lady, and the husband of the lady didn't seem that happy, and as he was carrying a bolo at the time, our friend John came back and related the story to us. So we talked with the counsellor about this, and the counsellor said, well, why don't we just get some of the officers from the PNP to come along with us? And that's what we did. So we had an armed escort up into the mountains, a long and difficult walk up into the mountains to see the pitiful house that this woman was staying in. So, excuse me. So it all turned out fine. There was no problem. The husband had a different perception as to what was happening. Didn't realise that that's why we were there. That we were there to do them a kindness, and everything was fine. And when we finished that house, the PNP from Etafe once again sent some volunteers up to help with the painting of the house, which was much appreciated. And they also, we saw them a few days ago doing the same thing at house 69. So we're quite familiar with working with the police. So we got along very well with the guys that came up. Two male officers and 2 female officers came up. And as soon as we told them what has been happening, for instance, we've been reported to the PNP in Taliban, and they had not heard about this because it was, I think, a couple of years ago, and it was really an anonymous complaint, and they said that we'd been scamming this family, when in actual fact it was anything but scamming the family. We had built them a new house, we got them hooked up with electricity and bought them a TV, and actually have made sure that they are okay with groceries. The little girl that you see, Lovely, comes from that family that we were investigated for. And so as soon as we mentioned this, the officer nodded, realised that they'd been sent up here on a wild goose chase, which he wasn't very pleased about, because it's a waste of police time. 8 o'clock at night, I'm sure that they can find better things to do than come up here for a nonsense trip. Anyway, the more that we chatted and talked about what we did, they then started to realise that they already knew something about the work that we did, our mission to help. And it turns out that we have been working with Etafe, so know them very well, but had not worked with Taliban. But in fact, Taliban at PNP are also doing community work, and said that they would be quite happy to come along and do some volunteer work the next time that we do something in Taliban. Now that brings us to the next thing. They also, as soon as they learned more about what we do to help the poor, they actually have this case where this man has had both of his legs amputated and is apparently living in very poor conditions. So we've already said that we'll go along, as soon as we are able, we'll go along and meet this man, and probably, I would make a guess, call me psychic, but I'm thinking that we'll probably be getting him a wheelchair. Now this is the second wheelchair. We went in yesterday to ask at the drugstore in Taliban about a wheelchair, and they did have one, but their price was 8,000 pesos, just under 9,000 pesos, which we felt was too much because we paid under 5 for the last wheelchair that we bought. Now this is for a small child who is paralyzed in the legs and not able to walk. He is disabled but is able to talk. We haven't been round to see him yet, but we will be going around to see him. Meantime, we had been asked if we could provide him with a wheelchair, and they sent us a picture of the child, and at the moment all that he can do is crawl around, just dragging himself around on the floor. So that was an easy one to say yes to, and we found a nice wheelchair on Lazada, and we've ordered that now, and it should be here in about 5 days. So we'll be having a happy handover of not just a house, but we'll be going around and seeing this little boy and making him a nice gift, which I'm sure will actually change his life. So that brings us back to the police and PNP, and they were more than happy to partner with us on our future projects. And this is what we find, because we've invited the police. It's very, very easy here to gain access to the chief of police and go in and talk to him. So we just went down to the police station at the Taffy, and we stated what we do, and they went in, and sure enough, the chief of police for Taffy came out and greeted us and was very cordial, and he came round to the houses at Tai Tai and actually said a few words at the event of the handover and the blessing of those houses. And since then he has sent his volunteer group within the police, the PNP, and he sent them around. Obviously they're volunteers, so they're not ordered to come around, but they can come around, and they'll come in a police truck and they'll do a few hours work, and it's very much appreciated. We always video it because it's good for the community to see that the police are working not just to arrest people, but to help the community at large, and that is our motive. Now that brings me to why the visit happened. And the visit can happen because right now, I don't know how many expat sites, how many what we would call troll sites you are looking in on at the moment, but there are a lot. Possibly 5 to 10 different sites who could be posting all kinds of misinformation, and there's nothing to check the information that these people put out. Are they accurate? No, they're not. In one particular case where they were stating that their aim was to do a detailed account of all the terrible things that a foreigner in the Philippines is doing in scamming poor people. But they then referred to us as a foreigner farming in the Philippines, so they didn't even get the name right. Now, that's the other thing. You may be seeing that if you go and check up on the name Terence Martin, what you'll find is that you are taken by Google to a totally different person, because the spelling of my name is Terence, and the other person is Terence. R-R-E-N-C-E. And that's enough to make a complete difference. The other gentleman is the gay boyfriend of, I think, a politician in San Diego. So I don't know him. and he certainly doesn't know about me unless somebody has misspelt his name, in which case they'll be getting information about me. So it's easy for the bad information. So how do you sort out who these people are? There are various descriptions of trolls. Trolls, of course, traditionally are like ogres that live under a bridge. Of course, these guys are probably in their parents' basement, and in the case of some who are recently claiming that one of the Americans farming in the Philippines today is going to be tried in The Hague for being an international I'm sorry, it's just so silly, an international criminal. For that person who is can I ask you, by any chance have you seen the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? I'm sure you're doing a bit of flying yourself these days, and completely insane, completely nutcase, very funny. This is the same person who accused us of, he said that I was lying, blatantly lying, because I had said that we had donated our blue truck to the Village of Hope orphanage. And yet, as he so rightly pointed out, he saw the blue truck in my last video. Now, let me say that this person doesn't know a bus from a truck. We have a blue truck. We used to have a blue bus, and we donated that to the orphanage. So I'm wondering how these people ever find their way home if they've been allowed out on their own. I think that some of them should be kept in somebody's attic. Do they check their information? No, they don't. I've just been told of the colossal pension that I am supposed to get from the UK of £179 per week. Oh, if only it were true. And but unfortunately it's not. Somebody said, why don't you just tell us? Why don't you just state the amounts and get the controversy over with? It's my business. What I get from my pension is my personal information. It's my business. And it's not possible for anyone to call the pension service either in America or in the UK and find out what someone else's pension is. You have to be able to quote numbers, and those numbers are known by me and not by anyone else. Okay, so the idea that a person cannot collect a pension from the UK if he has been living outside of the UK for 6 months is quite wrong. I served 8.5 years in the British Army, and I had a working life right up until, let me see, 1992 I think I left and went to America. And for all of my contributions during that time, I am entitled to a pension. And I get it. It's very small, but that added to my American pension, which I am also entitled to have because I had a working life of some 20 years in the US, and it's simple as this: if you chip in the money, then you are entitled to a pension. Is it a lot? No, it's not. But we are able to live on that. Someone has it firmly fixed in their mind that we live on, that we have said we live on $500 a month, which is simply not true. I never ever said that. What they're making a mistake on, they're saying they're misinterpreting what Beth did in a video. In one video, Beth, on a hypothetical sum of money of 500, asked the question, is it possible to live on $500 a month in the Philippines? That was her question. And back then, which was, I think, at least around 5 years ago, she said that she thought that you could live on that, but it would be a very modest life, and you would not have to ever be in a situation where you needed a reserve, because you need to have a reserve, and that's why people save, which is a whole other subject that we have dealt with in the past here. So let's just go on to one thing before we go. And I've got to take a sip of my coffee, which I made just before I switched on. So with all of the vigilante, what I call vigilante channels, they're all out there. They've all got a few hundred or possibly 1,000 or maybe 2,000 subscribers. And they're out there making outrageous claims, vicious claims, usually poisonous against some person or another in an area which usually has nothing to do with them, and they're extremely self-righteous, and in a lot of cases they are complete nutcases. And if you are keeping a watch on some of these, you will have been watching with a jaw that is heavily dropped. Some of the escapades that some people have said, some of the things that are supposed to be going on. So how could you decide whether you should be following a particular kind of content in a particular kind of channel? Here's my take on it. It's said through psychology and research done in psychology. There is the statement, there's the belief that we are all a composite of the 6 people that we spend the most time with. Right, so in effect you have to look at the kind of people that you spend a lot of time with. Now, how do you know whether you should or shouldn't be spending time with a particular person? In my particular case, in one particular case, a neighbour who I had been spending time with and not feeling good about, because that person was not a good fit, not a good match for the kind of conversations that I used to like to have, the kind of attitude, the kind of way of looking at things, and it was a very confrontational kind of relationship, friendship, if you can call it that. And I decided that I couldn't continue to see that person. And so after a few little milestone moments, I cut communication with that person. A little while later, after things had not calmed down but softened down a little, I happened to bump into him on the sidewalk in Taliban. It was an absolutely beautiful summer day. And I happened, as guys do, I happened to make the observation. I said, wow, I've seen so many beautiful women today. And he said, and I've seen so many ugly women. And I left just after that and have hardly passed more than a few words to him since, and have no intention of doing so. And that little exchange there sums it up. In a small town full of people walking around, full of lovely women. Admitted, not everybody is a raving beauty or a handsome beau. I mean, there's me, so not everybody is that handsome. But there are so many attractive people, both male and female, that it shouldn't be hard to see them. So my view on friends is that the conversations that I find myself mulling over in my mind after I have left their company tell me whether I should continue to meet with them. Because if you find yourself mulling over negative conversations back and forth, then I would suggest that that's a person that you shouldn't be with. Unless you enjoy the kind of abrasive or confrontational or, I don't know, blunt or frank kind of exchange that you want is found in that person. And if that suits you, then great. That's the one that you should be talking to, along with the 5 others, and they will shape the way that you are. Which brings me to our channel. Our channel is a feel-good channel, and the reason that we decided that we wanted it to be feel-good is because I would like to think that when people click off having watched the video on our channel, that they feel better, that they feel uplifted, that they possibly feel inspired, that they feel happy. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to think will happen to anybody that spends the time looking and watching our videos. So, sometimes we do cover sad situations, but at the end of that we like to think that we have in some way left the scene with more hope than when we arrived. That's the goal, to feel enhanced, to feel inspired, to feel at least happier. If you, regardless of the kind of content which happens to suit you, if you don't feel happier than when you arrived at the site and clicked open, then you need to address whether that site is for you. Choose your sites in the same way that you choose your friends. And I choose friends who make me feel better, who make me feel good, who have good exchange of good ideas, who are creative and happy and content with their lives. Those are the people that I choose. That's enough from me. Thank you for listening to this little tale of snitches, what Frank Sinatra, before he left us, what he said about people who make some kind of gain, have some kind of benefit from leeching off other people. He called them pimps and whores. It's, admittedly, it's not poetry, but kind of does it for me. And bye for now.